Nobody tells you that the worst moments of your life sometimes start with laughter. Not the kind that warms your chest, but the kind that cuts through your dignity like a cold blade. That's exactly how my story began, on a humid Friday afternoon in June, when my so-called friends decided my entire existence needed a comedic overhaul. My name is Marcus. At least, that's what everyone called me back then. I was 32 years old, working a mind-numbing job at an insurance firm, and living the kind of life that looks acceptable on paper but feels hollow in practice. You know the type. Wake up, shower, toast, commute, spreadsheets, commute, television, sleep. Repeat until retirement or death, whichever comes first. I had 3 friends from college who still kept in touch. Brad was the loudest, always cracking jokes and pushing boundaries. Kevin was the enabler, laughing at everything Brad said even when it wasn't funny. And then there was Marcus. Wait, no, that's me. The third guy was Tyler, the quiet one who filmed everything on his phone like he was documenting wildlife. We met every other Friday at Brad's basement apartment for what he called Guys' Night, which mostly involved cheap beer, cheaper pizza, and conversations that went nowhere interesting. That particular Friday, Brad had something different planned. "All right, boys, I've got an idea," Brad announced, rubbing his hands together like a cartoon villain. "We're gonna do something legendary tonight." Kevin immediately perked up. "What kind of legendary?" "The kind that Marcus here will never forget." Brad pointed at me with a grin that should have been a warning sign. I should mention that I was always the target. Not in a mean way, exactly, just in that way groups have when someone is slightly quieter, slightly less aggressive, slightly easier to poke fun at. I'd learned to roll with it over the years. What choice did I have? "I'm not getting a tattoo of your face, Brad. We've been over this." "Better," he said, pulling out his phone and scrolling through something. "My girlfriend Maya left a bunch of her stuff here when she moved out last month. Makeup, wigs, dresses, the whole deal." I was gonna throw it out, but then I thought, what if we gave Marcus a complete makeover? The room went silent for exactly 3 seconds before Kevin exploded into laughter. Tyler raised his phone immediately, already recording. "Come on, man. It'll be hilarious," Brad continued. "We'll do your makeup, find you a dress, take some photos. Just for laughs. Nothing leaves this room." That last part was definitely a lie, but I didn't know it yet. "Absolutely not," I said, reaching for another slice of pizza like that would end the conversation. "Scared?" Kevin taunted, and I hated how well that tactic worked on me. "Of looking ridiculous?" "Yes, obviously." Brad leaned forward, his expression shifting into that persuasive mode he used when he wanted something. "Marcus, when was the last time you did something spontaneous? Something weird? Something that wasn't part of your boring routine?" The question hit harder than it should have. The answer was never. Or maybe back in college during a dare that involved streaking across the quad at midnight. Either way, it had been a long time. "What's in it for me?" I asked, which in retrospect was my first mistake. By negotiating, I'd already half agreed. Bragging rights. A good story. Plus, Kevin will buy pizza for the next month. 2 months, I countered. "Deal," Kevin said immediately, which should have told me this was more important to them than they were letting on. And that's how I ended up sitting on a kitchen stool 30 minutes later, draped in a bedsheet like a barbershop cape, while Brad approached me with a makeup bag that looked like it had survived a small explosion. "Okay, I have no idea what I'm doing," Brad admitted, dumping the contents onto the counter. "But how hard can it be? Women do this every day." "Maybe we should look up a tutorial," Tyler suggested, still filming. "Nah, we're gonna wing it. That's what makes it funny." The first thing Brad did was smear some kind of cream foundation across my face, using his fingers like he was frosting a cake. It felt cold and strange, and I could smell something floral and chemical. "Dude, blend it," Kevin said, suddenly an expert. "You're making him look like a ghost." "I am blending. You're smearing." This went on for a while. Brad attacked my face with various brushes and sponges, occasionally stepping back to admire his work like he was painting the Sistine Chapel. Kevin provided commentary. Tyler filmed everything in silence, which somehow made it worse. At one point, Brad tried to apply eyeliner and nearly stabbed me in the eye. "Stop moving," Stop trying to blind me. It's supposed to go on the lid, right? I think so. Why are you asking me? The eyeshadow was next, some glittery purple shade that Brad applied with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Then came the lipstick, bright red, which he somehow managed to get on my teeth. Smile, he instructed. Why? I don't know, I saw it in a movie. The mascara was a disaster. The blush made me look feverish. The powder made me sneeze. After about 40 minutes of this torture, Brad finally stepped back and announced, "Done. You look amazing." "Let me see," I said, reaching for the mirror he deliberately kept away from me. "Not yet. We need the full transformation. Hair and outfit." The wig came next. It was blonde, shoulder length, and had probably cost Maya a decent amount of money based on how real it looked. Brad positioned it on my head, adjusted it a few times, then secured it with bobby pins that he stabbed into my scalp with more force than necessary. Ow. Beauty is pain, Marcus. Then came the dress. It was a simple black number, knee-length, with short sleeves. Nothing fancy, but definitely feminine. Brad tossed it to me and pointed toward the bathroom. "Go change." "You guys aren't watching." "Obviously not. What do you think we are, perverts?" I locked myself in Brad's tiny bathroom and stared at the dress for a solid minute. This was stupid. This was so incredibly stupid. These guys were going to mock me for years. But I'd already come this far, and backing out now would be worse somehow. The dress fit surprisingly well. Maya and I were apparently similar builds, which was either flattering or insulting, I couldn't decide. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror for the first time since the makeover began. And something strange happened. I didn't look like Marcus anymore. I looked like someone else entirely. Someone softer, someone interesting. The makeup was honestly terrible, garish and overdone, but underneath it, I could see something different. A version of myself I'd never considered. My heart started beating faster. Not from embarrassment. From something else. "Marcus, you fall in, or what?" Brad pounded on the door. I opened it slowly and stepped out. The laughter I expected came immediately. Kevin doubled over, pointing at me like I'd just told the world's funniest joke. Tyler zoomed in with his camera. Brad grinned like he'd just won the lottery. "Oh man, this is gold. Pure gold. Can we take the pictures and be done with this?" I asked, my voice coming out quieter than I intended. "Pictures? Dude, we're going out." My stomach dropped. "What?" "There's a convenience store 2 blocks away. We're gonna walk there, buy some snacks, see if anyone notices." Absolutely not. That was not part of the deal. Come on, Marcus. Live a little. "Brad, I look insane. Your makeup skills are non-existent." "Exactly. That's what makes it funny. I should have put my foot down. I should have changed back into my regular clothes and told them all to forget it. But Kevin was already holding the door open and Tyler was filming, and Brad was looking at me with that challenging expression that said, "I knew you wouldn't have the guts." So I went. The evening air hit my bare legs first, which was a sensation I wasn't prepared for. I'd worn shorts before, obviously, but this was different. The dress moved differently. I moved differently. More carefully, more aware of my body. We walked down the sidewalk in a tight group, them flanking me like bodyguards, though their constant snickering wasn't exactly subtle. A car drove past, and I held my breath, but the driver didn't even glance our way. "See? Nobody cares," Brad said. "Nobody's looked yet." "You're doing great, sweetie," Kevin added in a fake feminine voice, which earned him a shove from me. The convenience store appeared ahead, its fluorescent lights buzzing in the growing dusk. My pulse picked up again. This was real now. We were actually doing this. Brad held the door open with exaggerated chivalry. "After you, madam." I stepped inside. The clerk was a young guy, maybe 25, scrolling through his phone behind the counter. He glanced up briefly as the door chimed, then went back to his screen. We headed toward the back where the drinks were kept. "Grab whatever you want," Brad whispered. "I'm buying." "Since when?" "Since this is the funniest thing I've ever witnessed." I reached for a soda, hyper-aware of my movements. The wig felt weird but secure. The dress swished around my knees. I caught my reflection in the glass door of the refrigerator and almost didn't recognize myself. That's when I heard the voice behind me. "Excuse me, miss?" I froze. Mississippi. She'd called me miss. I turned slowly. An older woman, maybe 60, was standing there with a kind smile. "I'm sorry to bother you, but could you reach that bottle of juice on the top shelf? My arthritis makes it difficult." She thought I was a woman. An actual woman. My brain short-circuited. Sure. I managed, my voice coming out higher than normal. I grabbed the bottle she pointed to and handed it to her. "Thank you so much, dear. You're very sweet." She walked away before I could respond. Brad and Kevin were dying silently in the next aisle, their faces red from suppressed laughter. Tyler had captured the entire exchange on video. We paid for our items without incident. The clerk barely looked at me, just scanned the products, and mumbled the total. Brad paid, we left, and the moment we were outside, Kevin exploded. "She called you miss. She actually thought you were a girl." "That was amazing," Brad wheezed. "Your face. You looked so panicked." Tyler just kept filming, grinning behind his phone. I didn't say anything. I was still processing what had happened. That woman had looked right at me, spoken to me, thanked me, and never for a second questioned that I was anything other than what I appeared to be. It should have felt like a joke. It should have felt humiliating. It didn't. We walked back to Brad's apartment, their laughter gradually fading into normal conversation. They were already planning what to do with the video, how many views it would get if they posted it, who they should show first. I barely heard them. I was too busy feeling the dress move with each step, the wig shifting slightly in the breeze, the makeup caking on my skin. Too busy wondering why none of this felt as wrong as it should have. Back at the apartment, I went straight to the bathroom to change. But before I removed anything, I looked at myself in the mirror again. Really looked. The makeup was still terrible. The wig was slightly crooked. The dress was nothing special. But underneath all that, I saw her. Not Marcus. Someone else. Someone who'd been there all along, maybe waiting. I touched my face gently, tracing the line of my jaw, softer now under the foundation. My lips, red and full. My eyes, framed by clumpy mascara, but somehow more expressive. "Marcus, you okay in there?" Brad knocked on the door. "Yeah, just give me a minute." I took a photo with my own phone. Just one. Then I started removing everything. The wig came off first, then the dress. I used makeup remover wipes from Maya's abandoned supplies to clean my face, watching in the mirror as Marcus slowly reappeared. By the time I came out, dressed in my jeans and t-shirt, I looked exactly like I had before. But something felt different. Something had shifted. The guys were already pulling up the videos on Brad's laptop. "Dude, this is going to be legendary," Kevin said. "We should totally put this online." "No," I said immediately, more forcefully than I'd spoken all night. They all looked at me surprised. "Come on, Marcus. It's just for fun," Brad said. I said no. "You promised nothing would leave this room." "I was joking, man. Obviously, we're sharing this." "Delete it." The atmosphere changed. Kevin and Brad exchanged looks. Tyler lowered his phone. "You're serious?" Brad asked. "Completely. Delete everything. Now." There was a long pause. I think they realized I wasn't backing down on this. Finally, Brad sighed and made a show of deleting the videos from his phone. Kevin did the same. Tyler hesitated, but eventually complied. "You're no fun," Kevin muttered. "That's fine. I'm going home." I left without another word, got in my car, and drove back to my apartment in silence. The whole way, I kept thinking about that moment in the convenience store. That woman calling me miss. How natural it had felt to respond. How right. At home, I went straight to my bedroom and opened the photo I'd taken in the bathroom. Stared at it for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and started searching. Cross-dressing. Male to female transformation. Transgender experiences. Gender identity questions. I read for hours. Personal stories, advice forums, medical information, community resources. I read about people who'd felt wrong in their bodies their whole lives. People who'd discovered themselves later. People who'd known immediately, and people who'd taken years to understand. I read until my eyes burned, and the sun started rising outside my window. And somewhere in those hours, surrounded by strangers' stories on glowing screens, I started to understand something about myself I'd been ignoring for 32 years. The makeover was supposed to humiliate me. It was supposed to be a joke, a funny story the guys could tell at bars, a video that would get laughs and likes and then be forgotten. But it didn't humiliate me. It woke me up. The following Monday, I went to work like normal. Sat at my desk, processed claims, ate lunch at my desk, processed more claims. But my mind was elsewhere. I kept thinking about that dress, that wig, that moment in the mirror when I'd seen someone different looking back. By Wednesday, I'd made a decision. A terrifying, exhilarating, absolutely insane decision. I was going to do it again. Properly this time. That evening, I drove to a mall 3 towns over, somewhere nobody would recognize me. Walked into a department store with sweating palms and a racing heart. A saleswoman approached immediately. "Can I help you find something?" I'm looking for a gift. For my girlfriend. We're about the same size. The lie came easily. Too easily. She smiled and led me through the women's section, showing me dresses and skirts and blouses. I selected a few items at random, trying to seem casual like I did this all the time. In the makeup section, I was completely lost. There were hundreds of products, thousands of shades, and I had no idea where to start. Gift shopping again? A different saleswoman had appeared, younger, with purple streaks in her hair and kind eyes. Yeah, she's very particular about her makeup. What's her skin tone? I hadn't thought about that. Similar to mine? She looked at me appraisingly, and for a horrible moment, I thought she knew. But she just nodded and started selecting products, explaining what each one did. Foundation, concealer, powder, blush, eyeshadow palettes, mascara, eyeliner, lipstick. She recommended brushes and sponges and primers. I bought everything she suggested, not even looking at the total. The whole drive home, the shopping bag sat in my passenger seat like evidence of a crime. At my apartment, I spread everything out on my bed. Clothes, makeup, a wig I'd ordered online that was supposed to arrive tomorrow. I'd also bought shoes, jewelry, even a purse. It was too much, probably. It was definitely too much. But I couldn't stop. That weekend, I locked my doors, closed all my curtains, and began. I'd spent the last few nights watching tutorial videos, taking notes, practicing on my arm to test colors. Now it was time. I started with the makeup, going slowly, following the steps I'd memorized. Foundation first, building coverage, blending carefully. Concealer under my eyes, and over any imperfections. Powder to set everything. Contour to reshape my face, softer, more feminine. Blush on the apples of my cheeks. Eyeshadow in a neutral brown, nothing dramatic. Eyeliner, thin and careful. Mascara, separating each lash. Lipstick, a natural pink. It took me an hour and a half. Brad had taken 40 minutes and made me look like a clown. I took my time and made myself look. I looked at the mirror. I looked like a woman. Not perfect. Not passing necessarily, whatever that meant. But close. Close enough that if someone glanced at me, they might not question it. The wig arrived on Saturday, overnight shipping because I'd been impatient. It was better quality than Maya's, more natural looking, a warm brown that complemented my skin tone. I positioned it carefully, tucked away any stray hairs from underneath, secured it with pins. Then the dress. Navy blue, simple, flattering. It fit perfectly because I'd actually measured myself this time instead of guessing. Shoes. Jewelry. A light spritz of perfume I'd bought. I stood in front of my full-length mirror and didn't recognize the person looking back. But this time, it wasn't because I looked ridiculous. It was because I looked right. I felt tears starting and blinked them back. I didn't even know why I was crying. Relief, maybe. Or grief for all the years I'd spent not knowing this version of myself existed. I sat on my couch, still fully dressed, and just existed like that for hours. Watching television, reading, making dinner. Normal activities, but nothing felt normal. Everything felt significant. That night, I slept in the nightgown I'd bought. Woke up the next morning still wearing it, and for the first few seconds before full consciousness returned, I forgot who I was supposed to be. The weeks that followed were a blur of secret transformations. Every evening after work, I'd come home and become her. I started thinking of her as a separate person. Not Marcus, but someone else. I tried out different names in my head. Sarah, Jennifer, Emma. Nothing felt quite right yet. I got better at the makeup. Faster, more skilled. I learned contouring techniques, eye looks, lip combinations. I bought more clothes. Experimented with styles. Found out what worked for my body type and what didn't. I also started going out. Just at night, just to places where nobody knew me. Coffee shops in different neighborhoods. Late-night grocery stores. Movie theaters. I dress carefully, practice my voice to sit in a higher register, and venture into the world as her. Most of the time, nothing happened. People didn't stare, didn't comment, didn't even seem to notice. Which was exactly what I wanted, and somehow disappointing at the same time. But there were moments. A barista who called me ma'am. A stranger who held the door and smiled. A group of women at the theater who invited me to sit with them when they saw I was alone. Each moment was a tiny validation. A confirmation that I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't just some weird fetish or phase. This was something real. 3 months after Brad's makeover stunt, I was living a double life. Marcus by day at work, her by night in my apartment, and occasionally in the world. It was exhausting. It was exhilarating. It was unsustainable. I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep this secret forever. But the thought of telling anyone terrified me. What would people think? My coworkers? My family? Brad, Kevin, and Tyler? The decision was made for me on a random Tuesday in September. I'd gone out dressed as her to a bookstore, just browsing, enjoying the simple pleasure of existing in public. I was looking at novels in the fiction section when someone said my name. Marcus. I turned slowly, my heart stopping. Standing there was Jennifer from accounting, someone I'd worked with for 4 years. She was staring at me with wide eyes, clearly confused. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I watched her brain trying to process what she was seeing. I could see the exact moment recognition fully hit. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It is you." I waited for the disgust, the laughter, the shock. Instead, her expression softened into something like understanding. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "I mean, I didn't realize you. Are you transitioning?" The word hung in the air between us. Transitioning. Was I? I'd been so caught up in the secret, in the transformation itself, that I hadn't really thought about what it meant long-term. "I don't know," I said honestly, my carefully practiced feminine voice faltering. "Maybe. I'm still figuring it out." Jennifer smiled, and it was genuine. "Can I buy you a coffee? I think we should talk." We sat in the bookstore cafe for 2 hours. I told her everything. The makeover, the discovery, the secret life I'd been living. She listened without judgment, occasionally asking questions, mostly just being present. "I have a cousin who's trans," she said eventually. "She transitioned 5 years ago. I've seen how hard it is, but also how necessary. How right it became for her." "I'm not sure I'm trans," I said. "I don't know if I want to transition fully. I just know that this," I gestured at myself, "feels better than pretending." "That's okay. You don't have to have all the answers right now." Before we left, she gave me her number and the contact information for a support group she knew about. "They meet every Thursday," she said. "Just people talking, sharing experiences. It might help." I went to that meeting the following Thursday. Walked into a community center room with 12 folding chairs arranged in a circle, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. There were 8 people there. Various ages, various stages of transition or exploration. Some looked completely at ease with themselves. Others looked as nervous as I felt. The facilitator, an older woman named Patricia, welcomed me warmly. "We're glad you're here. Would you like to introduce yourself?" "I'm Marcus," I said, then hesitated. "Or, I might want to be called something else. I'm not sure yet." "That's perfectly fine," Patricia said. "Take your time. We're here to support you wherever you are in your journey." Listening to their stories that night was overwhelming. Some had known since childhood. Others had discovered it later in life, after marriages, careers, children. Some were transitioning medically. Others weren't. Some identified as transgender, others as non-binary, gender fluid, or were still questioning. What struck me most was how normal they all were. Just people trying to live authentically. No drama, no spectacle, just quiet courage. I started attending every week. Made friends. Learned terminology. Heard about therapists who specialized in gender identity, doctors who could help with hormones if I wanted that route, legal processes for name changes. It was like discovering an entire world I never knew existed, full of people who understood something about me that I barely understood myself. Around the 6-month mark, I made another decision. I was going to tell my family. I called my sister Rebecca first. We'd always been close, talking on the phone at least once a week. She lived 2 states away with her husband and kids, which somehow made it easier to tell her. "Becky, I need to talk to you about something important." "Oh, God, are you sick? Are you dying?" "No, nothing like that. I've been dealing with something, and I need to tell someone." I explained everything over the phone, my voice shaking, expecting her to freak out or hang up or tell me I was insane. Instead, she was quiet for a moment, then said, "Okay. So, what do you want me to call you? What name feels right?" The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on the revelation itself that I hadn't prepared for acceptance. "I've been thinking about Melissa," I said. It was true. The name had been circling in my mind for weeks, feeling more right than any of the others I'd tried. "Melissa," she repeated. "I like it. It suits you." We talked for another hour. She asked questions, good ones, about how I felt, what I wanted, how she could support me. By the end of the call, I was crying, but this time from relief. "You know Mom and Dad are going to struggle with this," she warned gently. "I know. I'm not ready to tell them yet." "That's okay. Take your time." "But Melissa, I'm proud of you." Those words meant more than she probably knew. Telling Brad, Kevin, and Tyler was a different story. I'd barely spoken to them since that night of the makeover. They'd texted a few times, trying to plan another guy's night, but I'd made excuses. Eventually, they'd stopped asking. I met them at a diner on a Saturday afternoon. Neutral territory. They showed up expecting nothing unusual, joking around like always. "Long time no see, stranger," Brad said, sliding into the booth. "You been avoiding us or what?" "Actually, yes. I need to talk to you guys about something." Their expressions shifted from jovial to concerned. Kevin glanced at Tyler, who put down his phone for once. I told them, simply, directly, without drama, that the makeover had triggered something in me, that I'd been exploring my gender identity, that I was probably going to start living as a woman, at least part-time, maybe full-time eventually. The silence that followed was deafening. Brad spoke first. "You're serious?" "Completely. So that whole thing, that night, you liked it?" "I more than liked it. It made me realize something about myself I'd been suppressing my entire life." Kevin looked uncomfortable. Tyler was recording again, which didn't surprise me. "I don't get it," Kevin said. "You're a dude. You've always been a dude. Now you're saying you're not." "I'm saying I might be more complicated than that. And I needed you guys to know because we've been friends for years, and I don't want to keep hiding this." Brad leaned back, processing. "So, what? We're supposed to call you by a girl name now? Treat you like you're a woman?" "Eventually, yes. If you can. If you're willing." More silence. I could see them struggling with it, their worldview being challenged in real time. "This is weird," Kevin finally said. "Like, really weird." "I know. But I guess if it makes you happy?" He said it like a question, uncertain. Tyler finally spoke up. "I think it's cool. Takes guts." Brad still looked skeptical. "I'm gonna need time to wrap my head around this, man. I mean, Melissa, whatever." It wasn't perfect, but it was more than I'd expected. We finished our meal with awkward conversation, and when we parted ways, I had no idea if our friendship would survive this revelation. Spoiler alert, it mostly didn't. Kevin stopped responding to my texts. Tyler stayed in touch occasionally, but kept his distance. Brad tried for a while, but eventually, the gap between who I was becoming and who he wanted me to be grew too wide. It hurt, but I'd expected it. Not everyone can follow you when you change directions so drastically. Work was the hardest part. I'd built a career, a reputation, relationships with colleagues. Coming out there meant risking everything. I started by talking to HR, explained the situation, asked about policies. Turns out our company was more progressive than I'd realized. They had protocols for transitioning employees, protections against discrimination, even coverage for gender-affirming care in the health insurance. Jennifer from accounting had already paved some of the way, apparently talking to people informally, preparing them for what might be coming. I transitioned slowly at work. First, I sent an email to my immediate team explaining the situation and asking them to use different pronouns. Then I started dressing more androgynously, then more feminine, then fully as Melissa. The reactions were mixed. Some people were immediately supportive. Others were uncomfortable but polite. A few were openly hostile, making comments, misgendering me on purpose, creating a hostile environment. HR dealt with the worst offenders. I learned to ignore the rest. The strangest part was how quickly it became normal. Within 3 months, most people had adjusted. I was just Melissa from claims processing, the same person who'd been Marcus, but with different clothes and pronouns. A year after Brad's makeover stunt, I was living full-time as Melissa. I'd started hormone replacement therapy, which was slowly changing my body in subtle ways. Softer skin, slight breast development, redistributed fat. Nothing dramatic yet, but enough that I felt more aligned with how I saw myself. I'd legally changed my name, updated my documents, come out to my parents, which had been as difficult as expected but ultimately survivable. My mom cried. My dad didn't speak to me for 2 months. But Rebecca had been there for support, and eventually my parents came around. Sort of. I also started dating, which was a completely new experience. Dating as a transgender woman is complicated in ways I never anticipated. Disclosure is a constant issue. Safety is a concern. Rejection happens often and cuts deep. But I also met people who saw me for who I was and liked that person. Went on dates that felt right. Had relationships that didn't work out for normal reasons instead of gender-related ones. I was living my life, not Marcus's life. Mine. The final piece of closure came unexpectedly, almost 2 years after everything started. I was at a coffee shop, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, reading on my tablet. Someone sat down at the table next to me, and when I glanced up, I recognized Brad. He looked older, more tired. He noticed me at the same moment and froze. "Marcus," he said automatically, then corrected himself. "Melissa. Sorry." "It's okay." "Hi, Brad. Can we talk?" We talked for an hour. He apologized for how things had ended, for not being more supportive. He admitted he'd struggled with it, that his own biases and upbringing made it hard to understand. But he'd been thinking about it, reading about it, trying to educate himself. "I was an idiot," he said. "That whole makeover thing. I thought it was just a joke. I had no idea it would lead to this." "Neither did I said honestly. "But I'm glad it did." "You seem happy. Like actually happy. I don't think I ever saw that when you were, before." "I am happy. It's hard sometimes, but I'm happy." He smiled genuinely. "Good. That's good." We didn't become close friends again. Too much had changed. But we parted on good terms, and that felt like enough. That night, I went home to my apartment, removed my makeup, changed into comfortable clothes, and looked at myself in the mirror. The same mirror where, 2 years ago, I'd seen Melissa for the first time under Brad's terrible makeup job. She looked different now. More confident. More real. More me. I thought about that night, about how humiliated I was supposed to feel. How the entire plan was to make me a joke, a story, a laugh. Instead, it had given me permission to become who I actually was. The makeover was supposed to humiliate me. It didn't. It freed me, and I've never looked back.